YouTube and welcome to another review, and this time we have AIRFIX's Waterloo British Artillery 172 scale. They're about 23mm in height. This kit was released in 1972. It's not a bad little kit. It's very fiddly, but it's not a bad kit. I'm going to kick off with the limber, and this is it fully assembled here. Now, the Royal Artillery itself was formed eventually 1799, although its roots can be traced all the way back to the 13th century. And their barracks, they will be based at Woolwich in London. Uniform is blue, and a lot of people think it was blue mainly to hide powder burns and dirt and things like that, but that's not really the case. You know, you'd see powder burns and marks on your jacket whether it was blue or red. Red is the traditional British military colour, but this was not the case. It was more to do with the fact that the Royal Artillery was separate from the War Office. They were actually administered by the Royal Board of Ordnance, and there was probably just a little bit more money floating around, and blue, they decided that's a nice colour, we'll have it. The origins of the red coat, obviously, I think was just really red was a cheap colour, and that was how we progressed with red coats. So I'm told. I don't know whether that's 100% true, but that's what we'll go with there. These chaps wear the Tarleton style helmet. Bannister Tarleton was the famous or infamous British cavalry officer, rather dashing in the American War of Independence. If you're American, you'll hate him. If you're British, you'll love him. He's adopted this style headgear, which is quite nice in a way, and so the Royal Artillery certainly adopted it, and this is what they're wearing here. Now, obviously, this is 1815, so this is a set. I think the cannon is about a 9-pounder. It looks a bit meaty for a 6-pounder, so I'm just going to have to go with the fact that I think it's a 9-pounder. I can't be totally sure. So that's basically getting a little bit of a warm-up to the set. This is what I finished up with. It was very fiddly, there's no doubt about it. It does suffer in parts from injector pin marks and elements of flash. The flash I'm not too concerned of, that we can always get rid of. The injector pin marks are a bit naughty, and they're often appearing on the backs of the figures. But we'll concentrate on the limber for now, and it was fiddly, there's no doubt about it. I wouldn't say the front part of the limber sits appropriately well. It sort of is on quite a pitch. I would have liked it to have not been so pitched back, but there's nothing I can do about that really. The connection rod, I'll flick this on in a minute and I'll show you. There is a connecting piece at the back of this, what you currently see in here, which you can't actually properly see, but that is quite difficult to fit, so it does require a lot of time. I did flick on Plastic Soldier Review to have a look how they fared, and I don't think they even bothered to put it on. It was so fiddly, so I guess if you don't want to put it on, you don't have to. What I'll do, I'll start spinning the turntable and we'll have a little look at this. So we'll come around. The uniforms, by the way, are very, very good. There's just a lot of flash here and there, not massive amounts, but it's the injector pin marks which are coming into the rear of the figures, which is probably a little bit much for my taste, and it's very difficult to get off. However, the figures themselves are really lovely. They are quite beautiful in their own way. Horses are quite nice. You know, I quite like it. It's a nice kit, and I think I've always had a little bit of time for this kit as a kid, so it's a little bit nostalgic for me. As you can see, when it probably rotates around, you'll see I can't really get the horses to be completely straight. It is difficult to fit. The riders don't really have the legs too tight to the horse for obvious reasons with the harness that runs right across there, so they don't sit well on the actual horse, which is a bit of a shame. And what I'll do, when it comes around again, I'll stop it and we'll just have a look at that harness section there. There's the cannon. I suppose you could drill out the front of the barrel if you so wish, just to make it look a bit more authentic. And here we go, I'll stop it here. So there's the harness. You can see there, so it connects into 1, 2, 3 of the horses there, and on the other side it connects into 1. You can probably see a little bit of flash around the last rider's boot, etc. They've all got sort of riding crops, but the detail is really good. It's just a shame this one's a little bit flashy and there is a number of injector sort of pin marks on the cannons and the figures themselves. The base is quite nice. There's a little bit of detail on the base. It's actually not too bad. The riders themselves on the back of the limber, you know, they're fairly good. There is a block underneath them and it fits in between two seats which locks them into place, so you don't really require much glue for that. In that sense it is a little bit basic, but the cannon itself has a modicum of detail on it, so it's not too bad. So we'll move on now to the cannon on its own, and I think I've also got an officer on a horse, so we'll move on to that section now. I'll do one more rotate just for everyone's benefit. And I'll put that on high speed. So it will blur at the front, obviously, and it'll focus as we come round. But it is quite a nice, it's a nice thing to have, and I think if you've got the time you could actually make this look really, really good, really fantastic. But you'll need to spend a bit of time just to iron out all its little foibles here and there. But it does stand well and it looks good. There you'll see the pitch on the limber. It's just too severe for my liking, and there's not a lot you can do about that, so that's unfortunate as well. You'd probably have to disconnect it from the horses to make that work better. I don't think there's any other way you can do it. So I guess we'll move on to the figures. Yeah, quite nice thing, quite nice thing. So here's our guy holding the wheel of the actual cannon, and it's a nice pose. He does actually fit, his hands do fit around the wheel very well. As he turns around you'll see that rather nasty injector pin mark right there, but he's got his nice saber sword. Not so much of a straight sword, that's a saber sword, and again the detail's pretty good. You lose a bit here and there. It is a little bit, I wouldn't say flashy, there's probably a better set out there. I think I just probably got a bit of a bum set, but as he comes around to the front, just check that detail out. It's really, really good, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that figure. But I think if you've got the time, you could make these figures look really, really well. So yeah, good. So here's our guy with, I thought it was a wormer at first, but I think we're going to have to go with a lint stock. So I believe he's lighting the cannon, although it doesn't particularly look like a lint stock that I know. Possibly maybe I'm missing something at the end, but I don't think so. But to me it looks a bit like a wormer, but I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's a nice figure, lots of detail, and there's that injector pin mark right on his bum. So a little bit of a disappointment. Like I say, you have got a bit of work in these, but if you do the work, this will be a really good set to have actually, if you spend the time on it. But again, the detail's really, really good. Can't fault the detail, and the accuracy of the uniforms is bang on. Now he's got a nasty bit of injector pin mark right on his front chest. I believe this is the guy who has the sponge. The sponge is typically about a foot or so long, although that's probably a little bit longer than a foot. But it is a short type of equipment, so I think that is a sponge. I don't know, it's probably too short to be a rammer, so I'm going to go with the sponge to clean. Again, he's got his sword Detail's good, just again there's just that injector pin mark there, but it's on the front as well, which is a bit of a shame. But a bit of tidying up. I mean, I could do the tidying up, but I need to show you what this is about really. And it does flatten out just by his arm and with the actual shaft of the sponge. So you could drill that out if you were really going for it. But yeah, no injector pin mark on the rear. It's got his nice embroidered markings on the back of the jacket there, which is coming through really well. You know, again, such a nice figure. They are very good. I'll imagine these are superior to the French AIRFIX artillery set, but we'll have a look at that just to make sure. So yeah, great figure, just a shame here and there the injector pin marks. Now I think this chap's got the ramrod plus a sponge on the other end. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I'm thinking. So we've actually got probably 2 sponges, but there you go. I'm not a massive expert on this. I'm trying to brush up on it as we go, but I'd say that's the rammer and possibly a sponge on the other end. So that's probably all you need. So you probably didn't require the other figure, but it's nice to have. Again, the tunic looks lovely, the buttons, you know, the sash. It's a really, really good figure. It's just really, the detail on these is really good. And for that reason, I'll mark this set right up, because they have spent a bit of time on this. It's just a shame about the injector pin marks, but it's a good figure. I did try to tackle that injector pin mark on his bum, and it didn't quite. I just thought I'm going to stop now, because you need really the right tools to do this sort of job properly, or you're going to lose parts of the detail. But yeah, very nice figure. So this is our guy. He's not playing hockey. This is our guy with the hand spike. And this is normally used just to push around the artillery gun. It's like a lever, so we would probably call it nowadays a jemmy bar. And this would just be to lever, you know, the equipment round if it got stuck or whatever. Or maybe you just wanted to change the angle, which is probably sometimes can be quite difficult. I'm sure a good crew would do it no problem, but a jemmy bar type hand spike will certainly come in handy, and I believe this is what this guy's got here. It's not come out too well in the mould, but it's quite a thin object, so I'll let AIRFIX off with that. Again, detail on the figure's pretty good, and he's got a nice pose. So yeah, not too bad. And there's the injector pin mark right on his bum again. And you can see the embroidery on the back of his jacket, which is really nice. Lovely Tarleton helmet. And his sword. So next crew member, we have our guy with, must be the cannonball, although I can't really see the cannonball. I actually thought he was picking up a cannonball, but possibly I am mistaken, because now that I'm looking, I can't see a cannonball. Again, injector pinhole on his bum. Sword is very good. You can see right the way through there, so that's came out quite well, that sword. You can see all the detail, all the holes where it should be. That's really good. But I would say that is supposed to be a cannonball in there. It's just not being done properly. which is a bit of a shame. You might be able to, if you're quite clever, be able to do something with that. So I wouldn't say it was a massive worry. But yeah, again, very nice figure and a good pose. He's got his legs bent, so like he is carrying or holding something heavy. So yeah, the posture's correct. So I think we will go with the fact that he's holding a cannonball. If I'm saying the cannon's a 9-pounder, which I am, I mean that's probably a 3-pounder cannonball he must have in his hands, so certainly struggling to see it properly there. So here's our guy with his telescope trying to pick the next target, which would have been very difficult with all that smoke. I really don't know how these chaps managed. It couldn't have been easy. And there's his injector pin mark, but this time it's on the body. But again, lovely helmet. It's really well done. Yeah, I think it's a great figure. Yeah, I think these chaps are de rigueur really for all these artillery sets. Very important. So a very essential part of artillery upkeep is the old water, and you'll need plenty of that just to cool the cannons down. I'm not so sure. Yeah, yeah, he has. His sword has gone through the bucket handle. So yeah, he might get into a bit of trouble. But yeah, uniform again is very nice. That's a good figure. Very, very good figure. So here's our officer, and he's on his horse. And he's got his horses quite, yeah. So 2 legs are down on one side and the other 2 are up. I'm not quite sure whether a horse can do that. I don't know. He's got an injector pin mark on his back. Yeah, it's such a shame when that happens because they're nice figures. They don't sit well on the horses, none of them have. I can forgive it on the limber because you have that big long strip coming through. But on this one he doesn't fit well either. I've had to put a fair size blob of glue on that. To be honest, that AIRFIX glue is pretty good. If things don't fit, you can literally put a rather hill size proportion on and it'll go off in seconds, and it does provide a little bit of meat on the... I wouldn't advise using those special modelers clear glue, you know, the ones you get in the jar. They're not much good for these sort of assemblies. But yeah, so that's the officer. It still worked out better than some of the other horses we've seen as we've gone along in the sets, some of the infantry sets where the horses haven't been great. This one did actually fit quite well and I glued it fairly well, so it's pretty good. So in terms of what this looks like with the crew, here we go for our little sneak peek. Like I say, the cannon does have a fixed hole, so you would need to drill that out, which isn't a major issue. That can be quite easily done. There's some lovely little Dremel drills you can get, and it's literally, it wouldn't take any time. You don't have to be massively skilled, just got to watch your fingers. So you're probably best clamping it off and drilling it. But that's the full crew set. I do have actually a bucket and a barrel, which I'll now put on. So I've added the bucket and the barrel, which is coming round to you now. So you take a look at that as we spin round. But yeah, that's the sort of full crew complement. I haven't put the captain in there, obviously, for you know, obvious reasons. I mean, this is what the crew is, so we don't really need to see him. So that's what you get. There's certainly quite a few figures there for that one piece, and it is a lovely little set, to be honest. I'd have to get some other sets to give a proper verdict on it, but you know, aside from the injector pin marks, etc., it's really good. The quality is good. So that's the full amount of figures that I got there. So that's them all together there. That's the best I can do to squeeze them on the plinth, but that's pretty much what you're getting. So on that note, I guess I shall bid you au revoir. Incidentally, the Royal Artillery are known unofficially as the Gunners. That's their sort of nickname that they prefer. And I think that's got something to do with the football team. There was a football team called Arsenal, which I think may have prior been based near Woolwich, and it was moved during the war. I can't remember the story, but that football team's known as the Gunners, and that's Arsenal. And obviously the Royal Artillery are based at Woolwich. But actual Arsenal were up Highbury way, so I'm not quite sure in the story, but there's certainly some element of truth there. But that's the set. So thank you for watching, and we've got more to come from this Waterloo set, so we'll keep rolling with that. So thanks for watching, and we shall see you soon. Bye.
Here's 40 shillings on the drum for those who volunteer to come to list and